The Iran War Miscalculation, the cost of following an ally into war. Flint West reporting. Look, at this point in the war, we need to stop pretending this was some kind of carefully engineered strategic masterstroke. Because it wasn't. It was a miscalculation. A big one. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. Now, the story coming out of Washington goes something like this. Israel was already moving toward attacking Iran. Tensions were escalating. The region was on the brink. And the United States had no real choice but to stand shoulder to shoulder with its closest ally. That's the official line. But alliances don't eliminate judgment. And alliances don't eliminate responsibility. Because if your best friend walks into an airport, buys a one-way ticket to hell, and starts boarding the plane, that doesn't mean you have to grab a seat right next to them. Most people, rational people, would say, hold on, maybe this isn't the smartest trip. Maybe we don't need to go to hell today. But that's not what happened. Instead, the United States followed its ally into war. And now the consequences are unfolding exactly the way they tend to unfold when you escalate a conflict with a regional power like Iran. The first shock comes in the military domain, because when you open that door, retaliation is not hypothetical. Iran has reach across the region, and U.S. military installations across the Middle East suddenly become targets. Bases hit, facilities damaged, assets degraded. And when those bases take damage, something else happens immediately. Something strategic planners worry about constantly. The security umbrella starts to thin, because those bases don't just exist for the United States. They're the backbone of the regional defense architecture. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. These countries operate under a security framework that assumes the United States can project power quickly and decisively from those installations. When those installations are under pressure, damaged, or tied up responding to active conflict, that umbrella starts to look a lot less solid. Partners suddenly look a lot more vulnerable. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. And the second shock arrives right where anyone who studies global energy markets would expect it. The Strait of Hormuz. One narrow waterway, about 20 miles wide in places, through which roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply normally flows. It's one of the most critical choke points in the global economic system. And when war erupts between the United States and Iran, that choke point becomes a pressure valve. Shipping collapses, tankers hesitate, insurance rates explode, energy flows tighten. The global market starts asking the same question over and over again. How long is this disruption going to last? Oil pushes past $90 a barrel. Analysts begin warning that if Hormuz doesn't reopen quickly, triple-digit oil prices are not just possible, they're likely. And when that happens, the consequences don't stay in the Gulf. Europe feels it. Japan feels it. South Korea feels it. Because those economies depend heavily on energy moving through that corridor. So one strategic decision in the Middle East suddenly becomes a global economic problem. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. And back home, the timing could not be worse because the domestic economy was already showing cracks. Then the labor report hits. 92,000 jobs gone in February. Unemployment ticking up to 4.4%. Not catastrophic, but not strong either. Now add a war, add energy price shocks, add market uncertainty, add geopolitical escalation. And suddenly the macroeconomic picture gets a lot darker. Investors start recalibrating risk. Businesses start reconsidering plans. Consumers start feeling the squeeze at the pump. And markets, which had been riding a powerful growth narrative driven largely by the promise of AI and technology expansion, start wobbling under the weight of real-world disruption. Energy supply matters. Commodity stability matters. And when those foundations get shaky, even the most optimistic market stories start to crack. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. And just as this geopolitical storm is gathering momentum, another problem appears on the legal front. The Supreme Court strikes down the administration's sweeping tariff framework under IEEPA. That decision dismantles a major piece of the trade strategy. The leverage those tariffs were supposed to create with global partners, gone. In its place, a wave of legal challenges. Companies that paid those tariffs are now lining up to demand refunds. Thousands of lawsuits, billions potentially at stake. And suddenly another pillar of the administration's economic strategy begins to unravel. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. Meanwhile, the fiscal reality doesn't disappear. The United States is already running a massive deficit, around $1.8 trillion annually. War doesn't shrink deficits, war expands them. Military spending increases, energy volatility pressures the economy, growth slows, and the hole in the federal balance sheet gets deeper. So now step back and look at the full picture. A widening regional war, U.S. bases damaged and regional partners exposed, a critical global energy choke point disrupted, oil surging, a weakening labor market, trade policy collapsing under legal challenge, a massive fiscal deficit still hanging over the entire system, and global markets trying to process all of it at the same time. That's not strategic stability. That's cascading risk. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. Because alliances are powerful, but alliances are not autopilot. Sometimes leadership means standing beside your ally. And sometimes leadership means stopping them before they walk through a door that leads somewhere neither of you can easily escape. Because if your best friend buys that one-way ticket to hell, you don't have to board the plane. But if you do, don't act surprised when the destination turns out exactly the way everyone warned it would. Trump didn't think this through. He fucked up. Flint West signing off.